Hey, so in this video, we're going to build an AI agent Slack bot right inside of Lindy. So this agent works entirely inside of your Slack account, and we're doing three things here in this demo. So your agent has access to a knowledge base, so a company knowledge base, so you can chat with all your company docs right inside of Slack. We've also given it access to our project management software, in this case, Asana, so it can create new tasks for you in Asana. And we've also given it access to our issue tracking tool inside of Jira. So if we need to create new support tickets, we can do that as well right inside of Slack. So let's do a quick demo and then we can build this out step by step. So I'm inside here of Asana and you can see I've got just one task in here now, but I can go into Slack and I can treat Lindy as kind of my project manager and say, hey, Lindy, new task, create new IG assets for next week's launch. I can send that off. And what's going to happen in the background in Lindy is it's going to treat that as a new task that's going to come in just a second. And we can see that Lindy created the task. So it's reading my message from Slack. Now it realizes that it's met a condition here, and we'll talk about the conditions in a second. But the conditions basically tell it what action to take. And you can see it correctly identified this as a new task creation. So it's going to create that in Asana. We'll check that out. And then it's going to send me a message back in Slack. So if I go back to Asana, we can see that I have a brand new task waiting for me inside the project management software to create the new Instagram assets. And not only that, if I hop back into Slack, the Lindy bot will tell me that, hey, task created in Asana 4, it's going to tag me, it's going to tell me what the task is, and it's going to even give me a link to that task directly inside of Asana. And this agent also has access, as I mentioned, to our issue tracking software, in this case, Jira. So we can have it create new issues to track right inside of Slack. So if I go back to my Slack, and I say, hey, Lindy, new support ticket. The footer links aren't loading on our website on mobile. I'm going to send that off and we can do the same thing. We can hop back into Lindy, go into tasks, and we can see it come in as a new task. And it's going to take the input. And again, it's going to use that condition using AI to know, hey, this is something that needs to be done inside of Jira. So I had to reconnect my account right there. So it gave me an error. But once I connect it, you could see that it's going to create a new issue for me inside of Jira. And then again, send another message back to me in Slack. So if I go back into my Jira software, I can see we have a new ticket that we need to take care of. Mobile footer links not loading on website. We've got the created date here. And again, if I hop back into Slack and then click into here, we can see that Lindy has responded to me in Slack saying, got it, and it's going to give me a new ticket number. I've logged this as a support ticket. The team will investigate, and it's going to give me a link to that issue inside of Jira that I can check out. And we also have our agent, as I mentioned, hooked up to an internal knowledge base here. So there's many different things that you can do with this. But in our example, let's say we have an HR handbook, and we want to make this accessible to all of our employees inside of Slack. We've got information here on PTO, health benefits, and in this example, let's use the 401k. So we've got the provider and the company match. So again, I can go inside of Slack and I can say, hey, Lindy, tell me the details on our company 401 plan, send that off, and we can come back to Lindy. And again, it's going to fire off a brand new task. It's hopefully going to understand what the question is about using our conditions, and it should go down the right route, which it does right here. It's searching our knowledge base. So this is basically RAG built right into Lindy, and we're going to get a response in Slack that I can see over here, right? So when I come back into Slack, it's going to tell me based on our HR handbook, here are the details of our company 401k plan. So it's got the provider, it's got the company match, and it's got the eligibility. And if I go back into the actual document that it's ragging from, we can see the information is exactly correct. So this allows you, again, to chat with any document right inside of Slack. So just to be clear, you can hook this Slack system up to almost any app because Lindy has a ton of integrations. I don't want you to think that it's limited just in this use case. I'm just using project management, tickets, and a knowledge base as an example, but you can go wild in here, connecting Slack to almost any software and then being able to instruct and direct that software using the AI agent inside of Lindy. All right, so let's build this out from scratch in Lindy. I'm signed into my account here in my dashboard. I'm just going to hit new Lindy. We're going to start this from scratch, and you're going to need to start with selecting your trigger, right? How does this agent workflow begin? So I'm going to click on select trigger, and we are going to look for a Slack down here and then message received. All right. So everything starts with the Slack message. Now you're going to need to connect your Slack account through Lindy. It's very easy. Single sign on. You can see I'm connected up here. And then you're going to need to select the channel that you want to use. I have a Lindy demo channel that I'm going to use as an example. Now, what you want to do next is, and Lindy kind of warns you about this right here. You don't want every message that comes through to trigger an AI agent, right? Depending on how your Slack is set up. So Lindy is warning you here to set a condition where this will trigger, right? So for example, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on filter events for this trigger. And then what I want to do is select text. And I'm going to say, how do we want the AI to know that we want it to run this agent? And the way I'm going to do it is if my Slack message starts with, "Hey, Lindy," okay, it kind of like talking to Siri, right? Siri's not always on. Siri only comes on when you say, "Hey, Siri," right? So same thing here. So my text, I'm going to say starts with, "Hey, Lindy." So anytime I start my new Slack message in Slack with, "Hey, Lindy," this agent is going to start kicking into gear. All right, so we've got that filter on. Now I'm just going to rename this to Slackbot YouTube. Let's turn it on as well. And now it's going to throw us an error just because we need an outgoing connection. All right, now we need to think about what different actions do we want our Slackbot and our agent to perform, right? And in this example, again, your options are almost limitless, but for this video, we're just showing off three. One's a knowledge base, one is Asana, creating a new task, and one is logging a new issue in Jira. So when a Slack message comes in, our agent needs to know which of those three paths to go down. So we need to give it a condition or multiple conditions, actually. So let's set the first condition for the Asana route. Okay, so this is a project management route. So you can see over here, Lindy is asking me, go down this path if, so I have a prompt on my clipboard here, and I'm going to say, go down this path if the Slack message contains a request to perform a task or action item, and then I'm giving it some examples, right? So we want to kind of tell the agent, hey, if a message kind of looks like this, if it's asking about a new task, then go down this path, and then we're going to build that path out for Asana. All right, so that's the condition for Asana, and now we obviously need to build out two more conditions, and now let's do the Jira condition next. So I'm just going to select add condition here, and then I've got another prompt on my clipboard. And so again, this is for if we need to log a new issue, a new complaint, a new ticket. So the prompt here is, the Slack message expresses negative sentiment or contains keywords like broken, issue, complaint, urgent, help, error, yada, yada, yada. I'm giving it some examples, and I'm just going to hit save on that. So now we've got our second path. And again, we're going to build these out, obviously, but we just need to build out the third path, which is the knowledge base. And now let's do the last condition, which is going to be the knowledge base. So again, I'm just going to click back on that condition block there, go to the bottom, click add condition. And then now for this one, I have go down this path if the Slack message is asking a question about our internal processes or documents. Let me change that. So then I've got a couple of examples here. And again, the whole idea here is we want to train the agent on go down this path if, go down that path if. Okay, so now we've got our three branches starting to build out, and now let's build them out one by one. All right, so let's build out that Asana path first, which is, the project management, add a new task. Again, I'm just using Asana as an example. You can use whatever you want. You're going to need to have it connected through Lindy to be able to select your Asana account. So that path is going to be this middle one. So under this block right here, I'm going to add a step, and we want to perform an action. So Asana is actually already pulled up over here. So let me click into that. And then what we want to do is we want to create a new task. There's a lot of actions in here that you can play around with, but for this, let's do create new task. And this is where you have to connect your Asana account and choose the model. I'm going to leave this as Claude 3.5. Choose your workspace over here. And then you want to choose your project as well. So I've got a Lindy demo project here. And then all of these other fields, I am going to have down here, so the name of the task, the due date. You can play around with this and get more complicated, meaning you can prompt the agent by changing this to prompt AI. But I'm going to leave all of these settings as auto, meaning that the agent is going to try to figure out itself, for example, what is the name of the task, right? So over here for these two tasks, I didn't tell it what to call the task, okay? The AI figured out on its own what to name it, but you can play with all of this. So for example, for this second one, there was no due date. Now, if you wanted to be more specific, you would include a due date in your prompt, and the AI could probably figure that out as well, and maybe we'll test that with the next test. But these are all of the fields, and Lindy has 3 options here. You can set it manually, which you probably don't want to do because this is dynamic. You can have AI figure it out all by itself, or you can prompt AI to kind of guide it in the direction that you want to guide it. But for these purposes, I'm going to leave all of these on auto, and all of these other ones look fine. So let's just save it. Actually, no, I'm wrong. So I was checking the one that I ran before, and I did run into an issue with the ones under, so tags in below. If nothing is set, meaning if it's blank, it's going to throw an error. So I'm going to change all of these actually to auto. That's just an Airtable configuration where if, certain of these fields are left blank or there's nothing there, you're going to get an error thrown your way. So turning it to auto will just have the AI kind of fill this in on its own. So make sure those are set to auto. Project and workspace, we are selecting manually. All right, so after our agent has created the new task in Asana, we want it to come back to us inside of Slack and tell us, hey, that's done. Here's a link to the Asana task. So under our Asana step, I'm going to click add step, perform an action, and you can see that Lindy is kind of anticipating our needs here. So we want the Slack thread and then send a message, right? So we want a reply to the thread, right? So it's replying directly to the initial message. So let me click on that. And then, so we have our connection. I'm going to leave the model as Claude 3.5. And the message is where, so you could leave this on auto and the AI is just going to come up with its own response, which is totally fine. And you can also prompt it to, and I think I have something on my clipboard here. You can prompt it with a template if you want as well. So my template kind of is check mark, task created in Asana for sender name, colon, task name, and then a link to the task URL in Asana. So let me actually call that Asana task URL. So again, there's different ways to treat the fields inside of Lindy here with the prompt AI, or let the AI figure it out by itself. So you can test different methods, but let's just use the prompt AI for the message. And then let's save this. And now this step should be good. And we can test this, kind of at any point during the build process here. So let me just go into Slack. I'm just checking to make sure everything is turned on. I turned my old one off. So this should work. Let's go inside of Slack. All right, so this is the channel that I have it connected to with Lindy, and I have a message here. And remember, we're prompting basically with, hey, Lindy. That's going to wake up the filter. So I'm saying, hey, Lindy, new task, complete SEO audit, and let's test it with a deadline. I don't know if it will give the deadline in Asana, but I'm going to say deadline April 17th, 2025. So let's send that off. And again, the way it works with Lindy is you can see everything in the background by just clicking on tasks. And this is a brand new build, so there's no tasks yet. So it is kicking off. So the trigger is working. Now it's saying that it met the condition to perform a task or action item. So it's going down the correct path, which is Asana. So it's telling me that it created the task. It's telling me it sent me a message in Slack. So let's go back into Asana. All right, so it did get So it filled that in itself, the task name. Remember, we have that set to auto, and it did do a good job with the due date. So the AI was able to determine just on the message, hey, this is the due date, and this is the column I should fill in. So this is the really cool thing with Lindy. Not to get too off topic, but you'll notice I didn't really have to do any mapping, right? If you were to try to build something in make.com, you would literally have to map each field back to a previous step, right? With Lindy, so yes, the due date column is right here. So that field is available to you if you want to map it, but AI is baked into every single step, right? So AI is figuring out based on the message itself what the due date is, and it knows what column to update without me having to do any prompting at all or any mapping like you have to do inside of Make or Zapier. But that's how you test the automation. You test it at any point, but you can see right now that our Asana flow is working fine. All right, so let's build out our knowledge base next, right? Which is this path. And again, for my example, what I'm using here is this little HR handbook, which has, information on various HR policies and stuff. So the idea here is, can we use this as a knowledge base that Slack has access to through Lindy? So we can just query the knowledge base in natural language with questions without having to set up RAG. I see all these RAG tutorials on tools like N8N. It's super, super overdone, over-engineered, over-complex. We don't need any of those settings inside of Lindy. Let me show you how easy it is to set up kind of a RAG chatbot with Lindy through Slack. So again, I have a Google Doc prepared that's in a Google Drive folder, but let's go back to Lindy. So it's this path over here. So we want to add a step, and you can see Lindy has a separate module, if you want to call it, which is a search knowledge base. So I'm going to click on that. And now there's many ways to create your knowledge base inside of Lindy. It's very versatile. So there's files and text, and you can even have your website scanned. You can use Notion or Dropbox. I'm a huge Google Drive person, so I'm going to select Google Drive. Now, if you don't have your Google account connected, obviously you're going to have to do that. And then you're just going to click Add Google File, and it's going to sync up through your Google Drive. So you're going to go and select the folder. I guess I need to re-authenticate here. You're just going to choose the folder, right? So you can see the folder that I chose was knowledge base Slackbot. So this folder has the document that we're going to run this test with. And you can see that it's now connected through Lindy with my Google account. So I'm going to hit save on there, and it's going to kind of push this out. And we can rearrange these to make a little bit more space over here. And so we've got our knowledge base over here. As far as these settings, I'm going to leave these as is. You can change the model if you want, but I'm going to leave Claude there. So now what's going to happen is if the condition determines that this is a question that requires the knowledge base, it's going to pass the Slack message directly to the knowledge base. And what we're going to need to add after this, of course, is another Slack step. All right, so like we did with the Asana step, let's add a Slack message under knowledge base. So I'm going to click add step, form an action, and then the linked action up at the top, we want to select Slack thread and then send a message. And again, with the message, you can play around with this. You can prompt it. For this demo, let's leave this on auto to see what kind of message it responds. But if you want to provide a template for the AI that it should follow every time it provides a response from the knowledge base, you just select prompt AI and give it a little prompt with an example. But let's leave this on auto and see how it does. And then for our final path, we are going to do a Jira connection here. Again, we're going to track some issues. So under this condition, let's add a step to perform an action. Let's search for Jira here, and we want to create a new issue. So you have to connect your account as well. We're going to leave the model for Sonnet 3.5, and then all of these fields inside of Jira, you can configure these if you want. Obviously, if you want to prompt the AI to be more specific, But for this demo, I'm going to leave this all on auto, meaning that the AI is going to try its best to figure out what to include for all of the fields. So let's just hit save here. And then, of course, we need to add that Slack step again. So let's add our step, perform action, Slack thread, send message. We've got the right connection. And again, for the prompts, you can set this at auto and let AI figure out its own response. Let's just actually prompt this one. So we're going to say, got it, sender username. I've logged this as a support ticket, and then the Jira ticket number. The team will investigate, and then we want a link to the ticket URL. So let's save that. And now if the message is about an issue or a ticket, it will go down this path. We can kind of clean this up a little bit. So now our Lindy agent setup is looking pretty good over here. So again, it starts with that Slack message. It's going to hit the condition. So this is really the crucial step here. Will it choose the right path? And then it's going to go down the Asana path, the knowledge base path, or the Jira path. So let's test this out. All right, so let's test this out. I'm going to go into our Slack channel here, and I'm going to say, hey, Lindy, new issue to track. The form on our contact page isn't loading properly. So let's send that off. We'll hop into Lindy over here. Let's go into tasks here, and we can see this new one coming in. So you can see it is throwing us a couple of errors here with the field priority. And then there's another issue over here, but Lindy seems to be getting through those errors, or maybe it's retrying because it will eventually succeed over here. So I'm not really sure what those errors are. I just know that eventually it is succeeding, because when we hop back into Jira over here, we can see that the contact page form is not loading properly. We've got the created date, which is accurate. We've got our key over here. So I don't know if Jira is just throwing us an error, telling us to retry or not, but eventually Lindy is able to log that issue. And then when I go back into Slack and I click on the reply, I can see, got it, Mike. I've logged this as a support ticket. The team will investigate. And then I've got a link to the issue. So it is going down the proper path. It is running into an issue, but it seems to kind of resolve itself, and it's posting it correctly inside of Jira. All right, let's do another test. Let's try to get a task created here in Asana. So I'm going to go back into Slack here, and I'm going to say, hey, Lindy, new task, create content brief for new blog post, due date of April 12th. We can send that off. And again, we can go back into the Lindy tasks. And I love how it kind of just updates in real time. It allows you to click in, so you can see step by step. You can see if you're running into any issues and if Lindy is resolving those issues or not, like it was before. So you can see it's hitting our condition. It's correctly identifying that as a new task. Then it's going to hit our Asana step. It's going to create that task and then send it back to us in Slack. So if we go into Asana over here, we've got the content brief, and we've got the due date, which is the 12th, which happens to be Saturday. So it does hit on the due date just fine. Let's hop back into Slack, go to the reply here. So the task was created, create content brief for new blog post, and that's going to link to that task in Asana. All right, finally, let's test out our knowledge base, our kind of RAG system built inside of Lindy. So I'm going to go to the way bottom of this document, and I'm going to just put this in as a question. So the very end of our Google Doc here, let's go into Slack again. Let's do, hey, Lindy, and we're going to ask about the workplace safety. Who do I contact about that? So let's fire off that message. Let's hop back into our task. We can see it's firing up on the back end. So here we go. It correctly identified the knowledge base, and now it's going to give us our answer right. Look how quick that happens, by the way. Right back into Slack. You have two options, HR directly. It might have hallucinated that email address or an anonymous report. Did it? Let's go back here. Oh, no, that is correct. Sorry, I saw the fake in there, but that was from the document itself. So no, it correctly identified this email address or anonymously through the ethics hotline. Yes, so it did get that correctly. My apologies, it did not hallucinate. So it was able to instantaneously search through that Google document, understand the question, find the answer, and shoot it right back to us inside of Slack. So I do think this setup shows you the power of Lindy, how easy it is to use, and what you can do inside of Slack by connecting Slack to all of these different apps through Lindy as kind of your AI agent starting point. So if you enjoyed this content, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments below what kind of AI agent you want me to build out next.